prettiest here. Yeah, give this a shot. Wine barrel rack, quickly welded for a makeshift ATV trailer. Adjustable length tongue for the design. Nothing too fancy. There's the plan. Pull the pin here. And I can extend it out based on the needs and wants. The trails were fairly intense. Let's just say this thing is lucky it made it back with me. Had it finally sheared off, it would have, been left on the side, GPS marked, and retrieved after the ride. Pretty basic, adding just some welds, put a bar down, and let's just say sheared off here, broke all of these, broke down below. This thing is, well, just about done. There we go. Yeah. So, today, I'm going to attempt to rebuild a trailer, ATV, from the ground up, using a general concept I kind of sketched on Google Notes, and for the most part, just kind of build it as I go. Should be a bit of fun. Plan to reuse at least this assembly, this coupler, receiver tube, and the wheels at least, some of the wheel adapters, and I got new stubs and new spindles. So, yeah. Well, first things first, I'm going to take the angle grinder with a cutting disc and cut off the old welds and recover our tube here. And safety first, eye shield, earplugs, and gonna put on these welding gloves and have a little bit of fun. And with the help of a grinder, cleaned up pretty much most of the spots on it. Enough to be usable for this project, which is nothing scientific, just a little bit of welding, a little bit of cutting, a little measuring, having fun, and hopefully building a new from the ground up heavy duty utility trailer for overlanding with an ATV. So time to get the metal and have a little bit more fun. So for this project, I picked up a 20-foot section of 2-inch by 2-inch tubular steel 16th inch sidewall. However, for where I'm going to weld spindles onto and for the outside edges of this trailer, I'm going to use some of my leftover 2-inch by 2-inch by 1/8 inch sidewall steel to have more or less thicker steel to weld to for the spindles to hopefully keep the axles from tearing themselves off, and then switch to this lighter 2-inch by 2-inch 16th inch for the structural rails and so on for bracing and whatnot. And I think that combined with this as a center point will make a decent lightweight utility trailer using those wheels and some spindles and whatnot I can find cheap on Amazon. Essentially, the more or less design, at least what I'm aiming for, is going to be to have two pieces come off at 45-degree angles from about the midsection on either side to come out for a wide frame. The overall width with tires I want to be about 46 inches, I believe it is. Right about just under that 50-inch width for the ATV, so it fits about the same width or within the body of the ATV for going trails, tight spaces, this and that, so it's not going to stick out. The wheels there are about 9 inches wide, but we'll say about just 10 inches to keep things round numbers. So essentially I'm going to have 10 inches, and take that down 46 overall wide, so about a 26-inch wide frame, which I'll then weld on the spindles and wheels, and that should give me hopefully a total of 46 inches or less for this trailer frame. Alright, got my 45 cut, more or less. Good enough for welding, good enough for this project. I'm going to have width of the trailer 26 inches. The not so good at math side of me is saying, hey, 13 inches wide from the center. So I got more or less propped up. I'm going to be about halfway on this bar. 26 wide is going to put me about 13 inches. So I want 13 inches. That looks more or less square. It's going to put me right about here. And that looks about right. So now, I'm going to take my tape measure down. That is roughly, we'll round it up. We'll say it's 16 3/4 inches. And that's what will make our overall length for these pieces. 16 3/4, and then cut it as a 45 back so I can weld straight back to it. And we'll go from there. Alright, end result, I now have two of these pieces that are almost identical, badly cut, angle grinder, but functional, and I can always fix it up with a welder. So, then again, not a perfect trailer, it's going to be for me, and just for fun, and well, we'll see if this trailer survives, and if it doesn't, well, redesign and have some more fun. Now to get the welder out and attach it right here, and hope I'm accurate enough on that. Alright, and here's the highly scientific way of assembly. Tack welding for the time being, which more or less eyeballed to get it about level. Probably isn't, but good enough for this application. This board right here, simply used it for placing down. Just lip over here on the receiver tube would have popped up, so getting it more or less level. And I'll probably have to play around with it. Not perfect, but for this application, it is good enough. So, on to the next step. Fully welding this and prepping out for our rails to extend out. Alright. So that welded and quite hot. Our ballpark dimensions and rough everything. Let's see, we are right at just shy of 26 inches wide. How about that? Ballparking things, not too bad. Relatively straight. Next, probably determine the length of the trailer overall for the main body that I want. That, I was thinking about the length of two Costco 27-gallon totes and maybe a 5-gallon water can, like a gas can style water can. Still deciding. We'll see. In the meantime, I'll write some numbers down, get a general idea what I want the overall length to be, And from there, use my 1/8 inch 2x2 to make my runners, because ultimately those runners are what the spindles are going to attach to, drill into, weld them in for my axle. Well, my hubs for my wheel, anyways. Yeah. And with that, time to figure out what I'm going to do next with this trailer. Alright. So after doing a little bit of measuring, a little this, a little that, the Costco totes are about 30 inches long. I put 2 of them in line, I got 60 inches. And the scepter, the 5-gallon water jug, let's say that's about 1 foot wide. So about 70 inches. The question is, do I want 70 inches from here, or do I want to do about 70 inches from up here? And with the overall general feeling, I think, I'll say that's about 1 foot. That's a little bit more. Yeah, about 17, 16, 17. So we'll just say from about up here, about that foot, we'll do our overall length. So be about 72 inches, about 6 feet from here. So 8 foot will be about 60 inches in length off of these, so we get 2 60-inch beams to run on back for our 1/8 inch, and we'll go from there. Well, actually, after a little bit of measuring, I did not have enough steel to do 60-inch runs each, so instead I simply halved it, and I got 52.5 inches ballpark for the steel. Not feeling like going and getting more steel. I'll just adapt plans, because this is basically a project on the fly. General guidelines for what I want it to look like, and well, have a little fun, do what I can. So 52.5 inches each. Next is to weld them up onto here, and hopefully I get it square enough. So yeah. All right. Alright, so trying to get these to stay the same width apart from each other to hopefully keep this straight. Tack welded up front, took a measurement across, which was, not 26, about 25 3/4. So, to keep this more or less flush with that, I used a 16th inch 22 at 25 3/4 and tack weld it before giving some inside welds. Help hold it in place. I realize up there with the 45 step, I have an exposed piece of metal there, so what will end up happening is taking another piece from here and welding it across on the inside. We'll fill in that spot and weld it solid. So for the time being, I'm going to weld up these pieces up at the front and here at the back, and then be back for the next idea, figuring out on how it's going to go together. Alright, so I've got our basic welds done for the time being. Enough to work with. Move on to the next step. Seems pretty straight. And I am by no means a professional welder, more or less. Harbor Freight welding help most of the time, gloves, basic consumables, and the welder is just a basic $69 welder from Amazon. That is actually working out way better than I thought. I just loaded in for the middle of this project because I ran out of welding wire. My 5th 2-pound spool since I got it, which for a $69 welder, it's lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. So anyways, so currently, since we have the man steel, the overall is about 72 inches ballpark. So 72, 7 feet, say 4 feet. So I'm gonna just say I'm gonna put from the end of the trailer, I'm gonna put my spindles about 32 inches. not quite halfway from the back. We're talking, oh no, that's 6, no, that is 72. Again, not the greatest one now. So, 30 inches, let's say, let's do it at 24 inches. That way we'll have at least a little bit of weight over the back. Then again, the other one's somewhat centered. If I do it at 30, then it's just balancing it front and back. ATV trailer, it's not really going to make much of a difference. Put the weight over the wheels, balance it. Yeah, why not? Let's go at 30 inches from the end is where we'll drill for my spindles to mount for my axles. Sounds good, 30 inches. Alright, so after a little bit of drilling and variety of cutting and this and that, because, well, I broke a pilot bit on my 1.5-inch cutter, and so I resorted to a grinder, some step drill bits, and some other stuff to drill my holes. So anyways, I have the 1.5 here for it to fit through, 1.5 on the other side, which is a little rougher from, well, grinder. Extra tools are on order and whatnot. You can do it right again, but essentially, I think I'm just going to continue forward with the general idea. Let this act as a general spacer out for when I use my little bit smaller wheels for the design. And simply level it here and weld it, and then with the holes I bored, and that one's off center, of course. Well, general, it'll do kind of assembly. I will be welding these in place and moving on to mount the hubs and then wheels, and then we'll see about the internal bracing pieces and see how it looks and see if we're relatively close to the overall design concept. Alright, well, with my spindles welded on, them more or less buttoned on the inside, and I think they're about the same height, relatively straight, mostly. But for this application, it should work fine. Now I just gotta figure out my cross beams going across in here, close this off. Probably put just a couple, 3, maybe 4 pieces across in the 16th inch, 2-inch. And that should be good for today. And put the wheels on it and see if we can't have a rolling little frame for a heavy-duty makeshift ATV trailer. Alright. Got the wheel adapters on, got the wheels on, and it's a good thing the spindle stepped out a little bit. Makeshift plans and everything. It spaced out from the axle, or from the frame I should say. It's right about par, so just making it work is making it work. Running these tires, probably not going to be the final tires. These are just tires, spare set 27s I had. Eventually I'll go up to 25s from the machine and make it so that it's same tire, same wheel all the way around. Ground clearance wise, it's going to be about on par with the machine. And what I need to do now, since I got the wheels on, everything's test fit, axles aren't greased or anything like that, is grease my axles, axle hubs anyways, and put them all together for the final bit. And I think I just need to put in my crossbars, probably put about 3 or 4 of them, something for that, stiffen up the frame, again with that cross piece there to close that off and strengthen it. And see how it looks so far. I'm quite happy with how it's turning out. And with the longer tongue on that, the nice thing about that 2-inch receiver and such is I can just pull a pin, pull it right out, and it makes it a lot more compact for transportation. Alright. And here essentially for the time being. Some finish up welding to do on the sides for the center braces, and of course finish up all the welding underneath, grind it flat. I may just stick a couple more cross pieces in, maybe some lengthwise. Just depending on how I'm feeling, depending on how I want it to look finally. Maybe put some side rails on it, something of that nature. Overall, for a morning, midday, kind of just make it work, put together ATV trailer, I'm quite happy with it. So, we'll put this together, make some side rails, probably put some custom coats on it, water bottles, or at least a water jug. Take it out and heat it up and see how it survives. And if it survives, yay. If it doesn't, then back to the drawing board and beef up the areas that failed and try again. But I think this, if I beef it up a little bit more, finish the welding on it, might be able to handle most of the terrain it's going through. So, we'll see. And I may end up shortening the tongue a little bit, keep it a little closer to the quad. Probably. But, yeah. Minor tweaks here and there, but for being at this, it's about a little after 8 a.m. Starting up, probably about 8:39 by the time I get started, and it now being just before 2. Not bad. Not bad at all.